when we impose sanctions, it doesn't matter if 15 million Palestinians come to you here in Malaysia or Indonesia, all of us, and beg you to have relationships or diplomatic relations with the state of Israel. You'll close that door. I understand your despair as a Palestinian victim of apartheid, but we are not going, for the sake of the principles of upheld in this country or in other countries, we are not going to have any diplomatic relations whatsoever with this apartheid criminal regime. Second thing is, like, how can we actually influence other governments to follow the same? There are a lot of ideas that are very, very practical. Like one thing that was never tried. Any country that has diplomatic relations with the state of Israel also have diplomatic economic relations with this country, trying to introduce even a cent of extra tax on goods coming from countries or sent to countries that have diplomatic relations with the state of Israel. And it would be like, the Palestine tax. And whatever funds generate from there should be spent on those countries to educate people in those countries about why they should be imposing sanctions on this criminal regime. They're very basic, small ideas that if we start with them anywhere, they will grow into this snowball that we all want to see that will crush Israeli apartheid, turn it into some kind of history where it will be possible for us to celebrate time or to celebrate freedom and justice in Palestine. So what I'm saying is that governments that do not have or impose sanctions or do not have diplomatic relations with the state of Israel need to be celebrated as examples in the world, rather than treating them as the exception in the world. Like, why don't you follow the example of the United Arab Emirates? And it's like, well, why to fall into corruption? We know that crime should not gain credibility because of its acceptance. Crime remains a crime. If the entire world accepts Israeli apartheid regime, that doesn't mean that it stops being apartheid regime. It means that the world is corrupt. Yeah, it's as simple as that. As for us Palestinians, like, we will continue to survive. If we start viewing Palestinians as survivors of Israeli apartheid regime, you will understand us better. You'll understand that some of us survive in ways you love and inspired by. Some of us survive in ways you hate. Like, you have Palestinians who survive both extremes. What I'm trying to say here is that the call should not always come from the Palestinian, because we are survivors. Like, we have Palestinians who survive the both extremes, as I said. One extreme is sacrificing life to get rid of Israeli apartheid, and one extreme is sacrificing life to protect Israeli apartheid. We have many Palestinian sellouts, like in any situation of oppression, what Malcolm X would describe as the house Negro. Like, we have few house Negroes in Palestine. So when you look at Palestinians as survivors, you pick and choose whoever you want, and you will only deal with the people that actually appeal to your moral sense. But once again, it's not about our survival. There are basic things that we all need to stick to, even against my will. Everyone is born free and equal. So if I tell you that I'm okay with lack of freedom, if I tell you I'm okay with inequality, you should slap me in the face and say, hey, wake up. This is not a kind of decent life for anybody on the planet, let alone Palestinians. So what I'm saying is, like, do not look at it from our point of view of survival. In every country, you have many Palestinian representatives who would talk about two-state solution, for example, who would talk about this diplomatic thing. And it's like, okay, you can listen to those, but also listen to what is right and what's wrong. If a Palestinian accepts being primitive in his homeland, try to educate them, but don't try to support them. The last thing about where we are right now, which is maintenance of Israeli apartheid. When will Israeli apartheid come to an end? I don't know. And I don't believe anybody who tells me, like, I know, because they suggest that they have the crystal ball and they looked into the future. No, nobody can look into the future. Like, I do not know when Israeli apartheid will come to an end, but I know it's inevitable, because in Palestine, oppression is not sustainable. That's what we get from our indigenous wisdom, indigenous understanding of 23 different civilizations that ruled over that geography. And we understand that oppression is not sustainable. Will it happen in my lifetime? I don't know. Will it happen post my lifetime? Definitely. So when? I don't know. But for how long will it go on? So if I don't have the answers for this, I do have answers for why and for how long it will go on. And the answer to that is very simple. As long as we have governments around the world that provide Israeli apartheid with means of survival, economic means, diplomatic means, and military means, and at the same time provide Palestinians with a humanitarian aid, those countries support both sides of the same oppression, and the only outcome of supporting both sides of the same oppression is maintaining oppression. I don't need to be a genius, actually, to understand that. It's not, once again, it's not rocket science. When you support both sides of the exact same problem, the only outcome is maintaining the problem. And that's what's happening actually around the world. The United States is the biggest supporter of the state of Israel economically, diplomatically, and with military means, but also it's the biggest supporter for UNRWA. It's the biggest supporter for humanitarian aid for the Palestinian people. No one country, I don't think even Malaysia, has been generous towards Palestinian humanitarian aid to Palestinians as much as the United States of America. So supporting both sides of the exact same problem results on maintaining that problem. Now, the way that is justified is like, no, we don't support the state of Israel because it murders Palestinians. We don't support the state of Israel because it destroys the Palestinian people. We don't support the state of Israel because of genocide. And they distract us. But the actual position, if you think about it, is more immoral than that. They provide support for Israeli apartheid despite of its criminal behavior towards Palestinians. And if you think about it a little bit, it means that the life of a Palestinian does not exist in relation to how we support the state of Israel. It's a little bit more expensive position than we support them because they eliminate Palestinians. So support despite of the elimination of the Palestinian people is way worse than support because of the elimination of the Palestinian people. So as long as we have governments around the world that provide diplomatic, economic, and military support for Israeli apartheid, and at the same time provide humanitarian aid for us to survive Israeli apartheid, this reality will continue to be the status quo in Palestine. How to target it? Once again, you target it by going directly to the address. Make sense? So thank you for listening.